Okay guys, we're back with Granddad for another Granddad podcast. This might be our last one in person until you come back in the spring.
What's wrong with next week?
Wait, when are you leaving?
Probably 2 weeks from now.
Thank goodness. I thought he was leaving a week.
Soon, imminently. No. No, my thinking is this, right? I think that the weekends where I keep the girls overnight have really mattered to you guys.
Oh, he's been babysitting our 5-year-old twins on Saturday nights.
So let's just talk about babysitting. It's not babysitting. These are my granddaughters, and I really like them a lot. So we do sleepovers in which they come Saturday mid-afternoon, and we do a big adventure before light goes out. And then we have this whole process as only 5-year-old girls can order. And then they spend the night, because my trailer actually is quite fun. And then in the morning we get up and we play mad games and pancakes, and they arrive late morning. So I don't know how old you guys are or how many kids you have, but believe me, as someone who had 4 children, to think about getting an overnight, it's hard. That was like, if there's heaven, that's what it must be. So I'm thinking I should stay 2 more weekends, and that will get you well past the flood, well past the setup, and kind of settled in.
And that'll give us...
But it's not babysitting. I don't view it as babysitting.
It's watching your hanging out with your
sleepover.
granddaughters.
It's a sleepover. Oh my God.
And the
with
girls
pajamas
love
and
it.
everything.
I know, they love it. And in fact, there's been a few Saturdays where I'm like, hey, on Saturday we have to do X, Y, Z. And they'll turn to me, no, Mama. On Saturdays we go to Granddad's.
Oh yeah, no, it's a whole operation. We do massive hikes in the trees. We swim in the hole when it's warm enough. It's great.
It's really good.
They're really great kids.
And that should give you opportunity to do another chicken processing day or a harvest. We call it a harvest.
Yeah, when
day.
is that?
The week of November 6th. Are you still here?
Yeah. I did want to stay for that.
Okay.
It's quite extraordinary.
Yeah. And we did lose most of our meat birds, our breast chickens in the Hurricane Helene. But we have a few turkeys, we have some chickens, and we're going to help them with their birds as well.
You know, so for someone like me that's handled so much tissue, because I'm a pathologist, everything that happens in surgery goes to pathology for documentation. So even if it's something dumb like you pulled a button out of an ear, it goes to pathology for documentation. So I've handled every surgical specimen, hundreds every week for decades. It's really extraordinary now to move into birds. I have a lot to compare it to, and it's really quite interesting to do the whole process. So I like it.
And it's a bit of, I'm sure you experienced this in pathology, but there's an element of compartmentalization, because I am raising these birds from when they're little.
Yes.
And the girls play with them, they're little, they're cute. The turkeys have been in a bunch of my videos where they've become characters now.
Yes, they
caricatures in my stories. Part of me is like, well, do I keep them alive for this purpose? But then I'm just buying for Thanksgiving. Then I go and buy turkey from Walmart.
It's something that you and I, growing up in the cities, can't wrap our brain around. They're not pets. We really like them. We name them. They're all characters. But there's this line you cross. They're not pets.
Yeah.
And everything we do, we turn into a pet.
Yes.
Right? That's sort of the nature of being a city kind of person.
Yeah.
For me, the hard part is not the processing. It's the killing. You have a living creature, and you deliberately end that life and let its blood run out.
Yes.
That's something I think I'll inure myself to. I don't think I'll ever harden to it. It's just something I'll recognize. I'll get this little flinch inside, and then I will move on.
Yeah.
When I first started doing autopsies, I had to put a towel over the face.
Yeah.
Because then it stopped being a person and started being a pathology.
Did that change over time?
No, that never changed. At the end of the day, I always found it something very hard to say, this is a person and this is a story. And you have to keep reminding yourself, you didn't kill this person. Every one of us is going to go through this. You do mechanism of disease. But there was always a little part of me that was hard, because you look at it, that is a person.
That's true. And in this case, we are killing the birds.
Oh, to eat them?
Yeah.
Yes. So there's always a part of me that flinches at that, or at least I just feel this little tightening inside of it. You recognize, you spend your whole life understanding how biomachines break, and then you just go kill it.
You don't eat a lot of meat, actually. Not a lot.
So I grew up as an English colonial,
Yeah.
and they do a lot of viscera, right? Sweet meats are pancreas, liver, kidney stews. We grew up a lot of that. And when I started doing autopsies as a young man, I couldn't eat viscera anymore.
Right.
It's identical.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, you just kind of move away from it. And the older I get and the more I dealt with biology, the more I moved away from it.
Right.
And I gotta say, there's something about chickens that aren't the same as mammals.
That's true.
There's a line you cross, and fish are even yet lower.
Yep. Yep.
You're still aware of it,
Yeah.
but it's not a mammal.
It's not like me. It doesn't quite look like me.
It's other.
Yeah. And for me, I mean, as some of you might know, I'm on the carnivore diet for health reasons, which means I only eat meat and pretty much exclusively lamb and beef at this point. And at some stage, we would love to try raising our own sheep, our own cows. That's a whole different realm.
They're mammals.
Yeah.
They're mammals. But of course, you won't kill them. You'll have someone else
That's true.
do that.
That's true. I would bring them to the butcher.
Right,
basically.
they go behind the door and magically something completely unlike them comes out that you recognize you put in an oven or a frying pan.
But I can be responsible for a good life for them. That's what I mean. That's part of why I'm so interested in living here on land in North Carolina, is to experience more of the homesteading.
Yeah, I mean, we all are well aware we've got this gap between our everyday life and reality. And we're living reality. I mean, these turkeys we're going to kill in 10 days. And I've watched those little turkeys grow up.
Yeah, that's right. You saw them.
There's an immediacy to that. There's a directness to that all of us need and like. I mean, we are all squeamish a bit, but we all want to connect to that. I've never heard a human say, nope, good with magic meat coming out of the fridge. I don't know anyone that really believes that.
No, I agree.
But it isn't easy. Don't think this is a free pass. It's not.
It's not. It's not. But from my perspective, it's been very rewarding.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I think everyone should try it. Everyone has different degrees of problem with it. Some a lot, some a little, some none.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really been fascinating.
Well, we touched a little bit on Hurricane Helene, and I know that you guys may have even started following me from some of my hurricane posts. We weren't in Asheville, where the French Broad flooded over. Awful stories coming out of that city. They're still just devastated. Same with Marshall. We're in a township of Hot Springs. Our little rental in the flats flooded. And it was a creek that flooded over. We were watching it. We got an involuntary evacuation at 9 p.m. the night before, so we packed go bags. And we kept watching, we kept thinking, there's no way this will flood over, because it seemed like it had so far to go. From my understanding, it sounds like a bunch of dams broke. And next thing you know, it's 5 a.m. and we check, and there's water everywhere. So in this podcast, part of what I want to talk about was each of our respective experiences, because you were here as well.
I was.
You know, obviously we didn't lose our lives, we didn't lose our children. We're very blessed. We had a house to move into, but how you sort of overcome those obstacles, and we can kind of get into that a little bit. So basically, we looked out the door, it's 5 a.m, everything's flooded. My husband starts gathering, gets the girls up, starts getting our to-go bags into the car. And that's when I said, okay, it's time to activate our animal plan, because we have like 50 animals. So I brought our livestock dogs up into the second floor of our barn, together with our goats. I put all the birds up onto a higher shelf, and then we kind of ran for it. And we actually tried to get to you, but the road was blocked.
Right.
We had just bought this farmhouse, and we said, let's go to the farmhouse. There's nothing really there. There was no fridge, there's nothing, but we figured we're gonna lose power anyways. And that first night we slept on the floor. And of course we lost internet, so we lost connection with you. Mark, the next morning, figured he'd drive over to see how you were and check in with you.
How'd that work?
Not well, because the road had broken. So he came back, and then he hoofed it by foot. I think it's about 4 miles to your house.
That's right. But he didn't go to my house, he went to Spring Creek.
Oh, he went to the rental first.
Right. So just to set the stage, you know, when you think about why it was so devastating, it was like 20, 24 inches of rain. Normally in Florida, you'd go, well, a couple of puddles in the road because everything's flat and it runs away. But imagine it all collects into a very tight V from the mountains. And the way, as I processed all this damage, I thought a good way of thinking about it is, you think about the French Broad River, where everything ends up. You think about the tributaries to the French Broad, that's you, Spring Creek. And then you think about the feeders to the tributary, and that's me on the Charlotte branch of Spring Creek. So let's just talk about what happened at each stage. So I'm on one of the little twigs feeding a tributary, the Charlotte branch of the Spring Creek. I was watching from my driveway, and over 4 hours, I'm a mile from the headwaters, a little mile. That water rose 7 feet, went over my culvert, and literally washed out. My road was gone. I'm a mile of, about 8 of us live in this road. The road was just gone. 3 trees fell across it. Go to the tributaries like Spring Creek, they flooded, they overran their banks, and these guys drove out with water at their hubcaps. That wasn't the scary part. you don't know that there's a road. You're driving at night with this totally opaque water. You might literally drive into a 10-foot hole and you're done. So the scary part is not how deep the water is that you don't know.
Yeah.
So you're driving like you're in a motorboat and you're going, I can't see, I can't see, I can't see.
Well, I know there were a lot of people, there was some controversy when I posted about it, especially this concept that like I left my animals. And I think there's a couple misconceptions here. People seem to think that we had like a lot of notice. Well,
No.
you guys knew it was coming, so didn't you just organize? Not really.
Not really, no.
No,
It
not
sounds
really.
like you should, and hindsight is always 20/20.
Yep.
But when you're doing it, think about it. So if they've just got a warning, how are you going to move 50 animals?
And where?
Where are you going to move them to? Is it going to be better where you move them to?
Yep.
So it's really easy to say that. It's not.
No.
And it was a great barn.
It's not, we weren't by the French Broad. We were by a creek.
You were on the tributaries.
So we knew the barn was not going to get swept away.
No, it was not.
We figured, let's throw all the animals up there. It's the best we could hope for. And then again, they're like, why did you just take Scarlett with you? That was all. They were very upset that Scarlett got a free ride. So I think,
good to be Scarlett.
yeah, good to be Scarlett. So two things. One, she was a bit of an escape artist. We figured if we put her in
She
the
was
barn.
a nervous Nelly too.
Nervous, she would
You
have just
medicated
bolted.
her.
Yeah.
Right.
She would have bolted. I don't think she
And
would have
drowned.
made it.
And drowned.
Absolutely.
She would have lost her mind.
And B, again, we didn't actually know. We didn't know what the roads were going to be like. We didn't know what the house was going to be like, what your place was
Right.
going to
And
be
your
like.
Great Pyrenees are there to guard animals. They knew what to do.
Yes.
They were perfect.
They were perfect.
Yeah. So we'll come back to when it's your turn what you'll do.
Yeah.
So then you go from the feeders. That was me with my road washed out. You go to the tributaries like Spring Creek. They flooded and roads washed. When they say there's a mudslide, they don't just mean the mud comes across your road. No, the mud goes from below your road.
Yeah.
So when you're driving, one of my little roads just above me, you literally drive into 40 feet of nothingness.
Yep.
I mean,
Scary.
right now you can walk and go, wow,
Yeah.
that's a big drive. And you don't know when you're leaving.
No.
It's not mud across the road. You can see that.
Yeah.
And then you come to French Broad. French Broad rose 24 feet.
Yep.
So, if you're 6 feet tall, you just do multiples times 4 and imagine that came roaring through. And it's not just that it came roaring through with logs and trucks
Yeah.
and boulders this big.
Yeah.
And houses and debris and tree trunks, and it was just grinding everything up. And it just, if you were wood, you were swept away. If you were concrete, it blew out your windows, scrubbed the inside, and blew out the other side.
Yeah.
And our little town of Hot Springs and Marshall kind of ceased to exist.
Yeah. I haven't been through either downtown. I'm not ready for it.
And we've been busy.
And we've been busy.
So we've got great excuses for not.
That's true. The stories coming out of Asheville have been really heart-wrenching. People that were swept away, like their families were swept away, kids were swept away. So our hearts obviously go out to them. Very grateful that we're doing okay. Then just kind of in review of like the next week and a half to 2 weeks. It was, we would basically, none of us had internet. We still don't have internet at our house. That's a whole nother story. But we kind of meet at the old rental.
So Mark, you can't drive because they had one washout and one mudslide. So you guys were literally locked onto Highway 63.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get out because I had trees across the road and there was no roads. So I walked the 1.5 miles to Spring Creek, and I walk in, I'm wading through water up to my knee in places, and I see Spring Creek and say, oh, this is great. And I walk between the barn and the house and disappear into kerosene-soaked water this deep. It was like, and as I sprinted out, having wrenched my poor old knee, I sprinted out and Mark was already there. He goes, oh, you fell in that too. And you didn't tell me, you didn't put a barrier. So each of us fell into this giant hole on the property. Yeah. And so we had to change our gear, and everything was covered in 2 to 3 feet of sticky silt.
Yes.
When they use the expression feces to a blanket,
Yeah.
that's what this was.
Yeah. And I got to say, Granddad, you worked harder than anyone I know, rinsing off so much stuff.
Yeah, everything was either wash, toss,
Yep.
and move.
Yep.
That's all we did for a week.
Yep. And the interior of the rental, landlords have insurance, which is great. We didn't lose anything of value. Some sentimental items, but
Wedding dresses.
I'm like, that would have been nice for the girls, but
They wouldn't have. They would have hated it, and they would have felt burdened that they had, my mother left me really nice English china.
I still have to wash some of your china.
Don't do that to your children. Now I've had to lug china. Everywhere I go, this expensive china that you can't put in a dishwasher because it's got gold gilt on it. I mean, it's suitable for putting on wall as picture, I guess, if you're that kind of person.
What's your quote about what you're going to leave for your kids?
Oh, yeah. So I have, this is like Granddad's rules of everything. If it's of historical importance, like Hitler's diaries, that would count, right? It explains something about your family. This was the gun your gunsmith, the grandfather, made in his apprenticeship. And it's got to be portable.
It's got to be portable.
I don't care if it's Paul Revere's anvil. I don't care if under the spreading chestnut tree. Don't care if it's an anvil, you're out. So, yeah, so it's got to be small and tell a story.
Yeah.
And not dishes.
Although those dishes are now, Granddad's now bequeathed them to us.
Oh, but only because I'm really not a kind person, and it deeply amuses me to burden you with them.
You're like, you have this old farmhouse, now you have old dishes to go with.
Yes.
Which they are beautiful, and we are going to bring them out at Thanksgiving.
You know what my friends said when they saw they arrived? They said, don't open the box. Just retape it and sell it on eBay. You won't even have to repack it.
Yeah. We were talking a little bit about this morning. We were talking about the difference between hardship and suffering.
Ah,
Is that
yeah.
right?
No, that's a really important idea, right?
Yeah.
So in your mind, when life is difficult, in your mind, differentiate between hardship and suffering. Hardship is a difficulty, but it isn't life-threatening. It isn't painful. You're not starving. You know, a child with leukemia, that's suffering. There's no lesson to learn from that. That just hurts, and you get through it, and you carry the scars with you forever. Hardship is you get fired from your job. Your spouse ditches you. That's all hardship. And when you talk about old people and you talk about what in their life had the most meaning, they'll almost always include in it a hardship that they overcame. And so, as someone once cleverly said, hardship is an opportunity to demonstrate virtue. Or as my father painfully would say, it builds character. Suffering is a whole nother matter. This whole project here of the French Broad, there was deep suffering in it.
Yes.
But there was even more hardship.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when you see what your shirt says, right? It says Appalachia Strong.
Yeah.
So, you know, we'll bury our dead and we'll grieve our dead and then we will be wiser.
Yeah.
When the USDA says this is a 100-year flood zone, that's not a suggestion.
Yeah, that doesn't mean we're
someone else.
off the hook for 100 years.
Right.
It means we need to rethink this.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Plan for it.
Yeah.
So, you know, we'll bury our dead
Yeah.
and we will look after our poor.
Yeah.
And for most of us, we will be sadder but wiser.
Yep.
And all of our kids will be able to say, I was there for the flood of 24.
Yes.
For most of us, it was hardship.
Yes.
And I think that's your point.
Yes.
We're not claiming suffering.
No.
Because we didn't suffer.
No. I describe it as being hectic. It was hectic. And there was a lot of
Stressful.
stress.
Tiring.
Yeah, we were wound
Grinding.
up.
We were really ground down.
Yeah. But there was also a lot of laughter.
Yes, there was.
And a lot of joy. A lot of people asked me how my twins are doing, how they handled it. Because a lot of kids actually were very unhappy and stressed, and they took on the energy of the parent, which makes total sense, and they were scared. Girls had the time of their lives.
Yes.
Like 5 a.m., hey girls, we gotta go, the property's flooding.
Yes.
We gotta get backpacked out by Dad.
Yep.
And he did. He backpacked them all to the car. They thought it was the wildest adventure they had ever been on. And I think we kept that spirit going no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, there were moments of peevishness. And some bad words were spoken when fingers got pinched. But no. I mean, but you can see for us, it's now turned into a great story.
Yeah.
But we're not claiming suffering.
No.
There was real suffering.
Yes.
And that's not to make light of it.
No.
But here we are.
Here we are.
Great adventure to talk about.
Yeah. It's been such an opportunity because our whole original plan, we bought the house, we're like, we're gonna fix it up, we're gonna renovate, we're gonna set up our fencing, we're gonna set up our animal housing, our sheds. And
finally, our lives are under control.
it's gonna be perfect, and we'll move in February or later if we extend our lease, it doesn't matter. Low pressure. But you know what, this gets us going, and how interesting is it to live through a reno?
Well, how interesting is it for you to be a historical reenactor?
I am also a historical reenactor.
Right? Because you're living in 1920.
Where I cook in the original kitchen. It just is missing the original stove, like with
That's
the
right.
fire. And,
Well, yeah, there's some places you don't want to go.
No. We have running water. And,
You have running water, you have a hot water tank, washer, dryer.
Yeah.
We actually got to review why Union Carbide is called carbide. and before electricity, how they generated their light. We've got a little well back here where they used to keep the carbide that would generate the acetylene for the heat lights that they used for lighting back in 1910.
Yeah.
It's historical reenactment. It's really fun.
It's really fun.
But we have electricity.
Yes.
And hot water.
Yes, and propane heaters.
And propane heaters.
Yep.
And if we had internet,
so good.
that's my kind of reenacting.
I actually ran into my friend who works for French Broad. They're the like electric company.
Yeah, how's it going?
In the last 34 days, I think he's had 3 days off. Like he's just.
They give them days off?
I think for health reasons they have to.
I think they have to. If you're going to die, please fall down so we know.
So they're working their butts off to restore the county, but they have to restore the county before they can do a new install, and this would be a new install because there's fiber up to the property line and then nothing else, and there's no cell service on this.
No, because we're in this valley with huge mountains.
Yeah, we're in a dead zone, so it's been an opportunity to spend, I guess, more time playing Uno with the kids.
To be quietly unhappy.
I sit in front of the gas station to do my work.
So I was reading this story about someone who was saying, we haven't had great innovations in the past 20 years. And this person that was very thoughtfully said, so you don't think there have been innovations? Let me ask you this question. When was the last time anyone said they were bored?
Oh, yeah.
When was the last time anyone said they were lost?
Yep.
When was the last time they said, I don't know how to do this? Right? And you say to yourself, we don't say that anymore.
Yeah.
Because we've got this magical internet.
Yeah.
And information flows so rapidly.
Well, some of us have magical internet.
Right, so when you lose the internet, you actually lose a whole way of life.
I mean, something as simple as, okay, I'm going to make ribs tonight. Then I'm like, I have no idea how to make ribs.
Right.
So then I have to drive to the gas station. I have to pull it up, screenshot it. It's just the stuff you realize you rely so heavily on. But what we ended up doing, because we realized French Broad is going to be very busy. They're looking at late November, early December, the earliest for install. We ordered Starlink.
Heck yeah.
And then from there, we're like, well, maybe we should start looking at solar.
Very much so.
Because Spring Creek power and internet go down often. It's not just the hurricane. It's rural, it's mountains. Trees, wind, rain.
Blizzards.
That's one thing that people say is make sure to get generators. Okay, well, we were looking at generators. They have to be maintained. They're not that reliable, all this kind of stuff. And then you and Mark started looking at
the Tesla system.
The Tesla system and solar and the ROI. Talk to me about the ROI because it's crazy.
Yeah, so if I did it down in Florida, the ROI, no kidding, 70 years.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to live that long.
Yeah.
But now it's getting good enough because you don't have to put it on the roof here, right? You can just put it out in the fields and you don't have to follow because you have a good battery to charge.
Yeah.
You can probably do the whole thing and 30% comes back from the Fed.
Yep.
So you can probably do it for 15 to 20,000 and get 30% back.
Yes.
So 10 to 15 range.
Yep.
And that's for a 6, as I now can say, megawatt battery system that you can run your house for a week on.
Yep.
So that's in the spirit of what you wanted to do here, right? Was to be independent, get close to growing your own food, have your own electricity, have your own communications.
Yeah.
But we're not going to be lost, have no information.
Yes.
We're not doing that.
And the solar, and then you make that back because you're not paying your utility bill.
Well, yeah, and of course nowadays you can often, if it depends on your system, if you generate a lot of juice that you're not using, you can feed it into the system and they pay you 10 or 20 bucks.
Yeah.
But it's in the spirit of the thing.
It really is.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're looking into that. We're going to set up Starlink for whenever things go down.
Yep.
And Starlink's nice because it's they're not sponsoring us, by the way. I'm just talking about. There's no contract, so you can turn it on and off as.
Well, we've got an emergency deal now, right?
Yes, and they're offering hurricane relief, which is really nice for the next couple months. Yeah. What else are we working on that's in the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish here?
Well, we're suffering on Indian Camp Creek how to build a house.
Oh my gosh, Granddad's still going through the same dilemma we were talking about in the last video. He's like, he doesn't know who are you?
Because in the spirit of the thing, I can write a check and have a contractor come and build me a house. That's not the spirit of the thing.
But where?
Well, that's a huge problem.
It's 56 acres?
60 acres.
60 acres.
And how many vertical feet?
Too many.
Right, so we actually have 6 climate zones.
Yep.
We have creek and meadow, we have in the trees, and then we have the view. And then north and south are completely different ecosystems.
Yeah.
So, I'm Creek and Meadow. That's been gorgeous. That was where I was for the flood.
That's
totally
where
love it.
his trailer's there right now.
Yeah, that's where my resident trailer.
It's
thank
a
you.
very nice trailer.
But we've also got a view lot that must be 500 feet higher.
Yeah.
And I've actually never had a view. All the places I've lived, they were like $10 million to have the view. So I've never had a view. So, we carved off this sort of ledge that I could go and live for the summer at. So that I think I really want to do, but I've got to put in a well and septic and all that stuff. So
well, we should look at moving the trailer up there.
absolutely,
Let you do it.
I really want to do that. But the other thing, of course, the spirit of the thing is, Mark, for many years, he was employed as an engineer at a cutting-edge internal finishing.
Interior modular
Interior
construction.
modular design.
Yeah.
So he's always been a CNC guy. And so, he's always wanted to sit building. And, but he's never done one. It doesn't look hard with his engineering and all his background. He's sure he can do it, but he's never done it.
Mm-hmm.
So this March, we are committed to going to Maine
That's right. He's
to
going
take a 2-week course in SIP. And I've got to have my meadow house planned, and he and I are going to go figure out how to do a
build
SIP.
it.
That's the spirit of it.
SIP is structurally insulated
that.
panel.
That's right, structurally. It's all prefab.
Yep.
And so if you pour your foundation, you basically come and just bolt it together.
Yeah.
But it's all CNC technology. It's all computer cut. So tolerances are to millimeters.
Yes. It's a more efficient,
Yes.
less expensive.
It's, a bit.
Yeah.
The issue is that it's really fast.
Yeah.
There's no one to do the work. We're always waiting for workmen. How long has it been for our person to start the house?
Mountain time.
But it's mountain time everywhere.
Yeah, it is.
You're not going to go to Florida and build a house.
No. Yeah, everyone's
So
busy.
this puts you under control because it all comes pre-wired, pre-plumbed,
Yeah.
pre-finished. So you pour your foundation and you can just assemble it. The real challenge is getting the crane because the panels are big and they're 300 pounds.
Yeah.
Sort of at the limit of what 2 or 3 guys can do.
Yeah.
So it's more awkward than big. But yeah, you can do it. They come in whatever size, whatever height, and they're all pre-cut, and you give them the plans, they pre-cut your plan, and you just assemble it.
Yeah.
So that's another reason we haven't done it. Signing a check is not the idea here.
Yes, that's right. It's learning a better way of doing it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like building.
Yeah.
I like being part of it. I want to walk in and think I had something to do with it.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I have lived in tract houses all our lives.
Yep.
So yeah, that's not news.
Yep.
That's not what this is about.
No, and I'll be definitely capturing content of that.
Well, because then everyone can do it. If you have a piece of land, we can build you a shell of a house, and we've priced this all out for $100,000 to $120,000, depending on the size.
Yeah.
We can shell you out a house.
Yeah.
And then after that, who doesn't want to learn how to finish floors and, modular cabinets? Mark's always wanted to CNC that. Who hasn't wanted to do that?
Yeah.
And all the tough spot is pre-done. All the wiring and plumbing is all, you just click it together.
Yeah.
So who hasn't wanted to do that?
I think that's going to be a great project, and then juxtapose that to renovating like a 124-year-old
I'd rather have a SIP house.
farmhouse. I'd rather have an old. I guess I want to experience both, and I
Yes,
guess
you do.
we will because
We
we're
will.
working together. And
Yeah. No, we will.
Yeah.
No, everyone has to restore an old house.
Yes, and then curse it. We already had someone come by to do an inspection of our gorgeous 1980s wood-burning stove and the fireplace, the chimney, the wood-burning stove. Nothing passed inspection.
It all failed. Everything
It
failed.
all. I'm sure the whole house would fail. So that's gone. We might be able to install something on the other side. I'm actually talking to a local chimney guy who is interested in maybe doing some work with us. So that's where that's at, and I'm sure the electric has to be redone. The other day I accidentally spilled my water bottle on the second floor, and it immediately dripped through the crack and right to the main floor, and I'm like, I don't know how well this house is built.
And yet here we are 100 years later, still standing.
It's still, it withstood a hurricane, several hurricanes.
Yeah,
I
so that
guess.
says something.
Yeah, it does. So yeah, we're just going to be working on that. Granddad and I will keep podcasting remotely. Well, we'll do another one.
So,
before you
so
leave.
I've got this place down in Florida, and the magic of Florida was, when Allie's late mother-in-law developed her Parkinson's disease, we realized we weren't going to have a normal retirement together. And so, she was always up for an adventure. And I had started, as in addition to my work, in the evenings, I was teaching at a high school. And she said, boy, you really like this teaching. Why don't you see if it's real? And so I wrapped up my career, our affairs had prospered, and I went and taught in the Caribbean for 3 years with her. And so when we came back, we said, okay, if you've got Parkinson and it's a motor disease and you don't fly well or travel well, how do we get the kids to come and see you? And so we moved back to Florida in a community that functions as a resort. Because we figured everyone's going to come and visit mom if it's kind of like going to Florida for a resort. But it's Florida.
Yeah.
And don't kid yourself, those summers, yeah, you're doing fine in June.
hot.
You're not doing fine in August.
Yeah.
And so that was a big part of my attraction here.
Yeah.
But you know, I haven't thought about it. You know, when I did think about it, I thought about it, this is true, after Helene came through,
Oh.
Milton was my property.
Yep.
Milton actually got
We had literally just wrapped up cleaning
Yes.
up the rental. All of our stuff was over, and
Yes.
we're like, well, we may all have to go down to Florida to help Granddad now, because
Yes.
Milton is hitting Florida.
So Milton was supposed to hit Tampa, saved it by going a click south. Yeah, I'm a click south.
Yeah.
So it came ashore, we didn't get the worst of it. It came ashore at 7 feet, which got just to my steps, because I'm not on the beach, obviously. It just got just to my steps. So I dodged that bullet. But that was the only time I've thought about Florida since I came here.
Well, I mean, if it weren't for the fact that your trailer is very cold in the winter,
My cardboard box.
your cardboard box, you might be staying the winter.
Yeah, so it's actually called being a boomeranger. So you know, we're the boomers.
I don't know
obviously.
that.
You don't know boomerang? No, so that's, you're up in the north, you're not doing winter anymore.
Yeah.
So you go to Florida,
Yeah.
and you realize really August, September are not fun, so you go halfway back.
Oh, I've heard it as like a halfbacker. We're
Yeah,
the
halfway backers.
But I like boomeranger.
But boomeranger is
yeah.
also another name for, you do Florida 3 to 4 years, you know what?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, look at the shirt I'm wearing. I bought this in Florida 8 years ago.
Never.
First time I've worn it.
Yeah, no kidding. It's too hot.
It's, yeah, you would never do this in Florida. But it feels great.
And we've done, Mark and I and the girls have done a couple winters here, and obviously not in the trailer. We've done it in houses. Obviously heated houses. This one's not, so that'll be its own experience. It's lovely, actually.
Yes.
It's maybe 2 months of being like, it's a little, I have to heat my car in the morning. And then it's like this.
Yes. So, you know, the big challenge for me is I don't want, at this stage, I'm young enough that I don't want to integrate into Mark and Allie's family. You know, they need to form their family unit. And you know, you sort of go, they've been married a long time, but the truth is, they were married a long time without children.
Yes.
And I don't mean this unkindly, but that's different.
We've been together 15, shush, I got a rooster interrupting. We've been together 15 and a half years.
Wow.
And our kids are 5. A big part of that was we kind of enjoyed dink life.
Oh God, yeah, you were both prospering professionals.
We started young, we started dating young, so there was like no rush. And then we struggled to have babies.
Right.
And so it kind of, everything got pushed out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I can remember you came to me, you were 27, 28, and you said to me, so we've been trying for a year with no luck. Should I do something about it? And the reason I know this so well is I teach my medical students this, right? So at this point, I'll stop and say, okay, so what do you tell them? And they all give me this, I can barely wait. And all the women, because these are older women, they're all leaning forward in their chairs.
Older, like 20, late 20s.
Late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah, so enough that they're,
Like they're thinking about kids.
they're thinking about, they've got, you know, they're on the clock. They can hear the tick-tock.
Yeah.
And I let it hang there and I go, well, of course you do.
Yeah.
If there's something to fix, early is always better.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So then I make them walk through what testing would you all do. And so Allie came back and said, I'm starting to go into premature ovarian failure.
Yeah.
And I said, wow, well, really good thing we worked that up.
Of course, called my mother, cried to her about it. She goes, oh yeah, I hit menopause early too. And I'm like, what the
Thanks for telling me.
frig, man? You said I would have started having babies at 18.
Yes. Gone back to school when you were
But
40.
again, what
Here we are.
hindsight is,
2020.
it is 2020.
And so then you went through IVF.
Yep.
And then you had your miracle babies.
Yep.
And then, you know, Mark came back. He was traveling internationally. He was with this really classy company doing all things all over the world. And he sort of came back one day and said, so are we happy? And, you know, brave you said, no. And he said, let's quit. They have no money at all. They spent what they
Yeah. Well, it was, I mean, it was a slow quit. It was one of those like, well, you never know. And I'll keep all the doors open. But I knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you came down to Florida with those tiny little preemie kids. I mean, they were terrifying.
They were tiny.
And Mark wrapped up affairs. So, you know, Mark had spent, what, 6 weeks with the babies?
No, he'd spent 5 months. But it was 5 months of twins, which
Yeah.
is
Just a blur.
just a blur. Twin babies, you're up every 2 to 3 hours feeding them.
Yeah.
It's intense.
So he comes down, what, a month, 2 later to an established social routine. And so I watched this for a while, and I said to myself, you guys haven't established your own marriage with family with children. Mm-hmm. So bless you, but you guys should plan on leaving.
So what you're saying is like, while you want to be integrated into our life, you don't want to
take it over.
Yeah. And to which I just keep begging, like, just stay with us. Just look, we'll build you, we'll come in, you can have the master, okay? Like, just, you know what I mean? It's been so good
been really
having
fun.
you.
Haven't we had
so
fun?
fun.
We've had a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and by the way, this is actually not my father. I don't know if you guys know this.
Wait, I'm not?
Although,
wait, are you sure?
If you look at a picture of Granddad and Papa, who's my dad, they look almost identical.
No, you could do that.
They dress the same. They have the same glasses. They have the same hair. It's very funny. I'd say you and I kind of got along ever since you first visited us in Calgary, and I'd moved in with Mark, basically.
So it's a better story than that.
Okay.
So we knew that there was a woman in Mark's life. Got it. And so they're bopping around. Okay, got it. They're talking about moving together. That, we're a long way away in Florida. That's sounding serious. And then we got the news, Allie got a kitten and a puppy. And your mother-in-law turned to me and said, you get up there and you find out what's going on. Because she knew exactly what that meant.
I was nesting.
Oh, we knew that. So next thing you know, I'm flying into Calgary and I'm staying with you guys meet the parents.
That's right.
And we had a blast.
We had a blast.
We laughed all day.
I must have been 22, 23.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very young.
Yep. I was working some
Well, you hadn't gone to law
internship.
school, had you?
Hadn't even gone to, or no, maybe it was after my first year or something. I think it was after my
22?
first year. Yeah.
Was it? Okay.
No, we had a really good time.
We had so much fun.
And we always kind of, like, Mark and I would come visit you guys.
Oh, yes.
At least once a year, if not more.
Well, we were in the resort, for God's sakes.
And even before then, even in Exeter.
Yeah, that was good.
And then when I moved to Florida, like, Granddad and I, he helped me with my half Ironman training.
I sure did.
First of all, he got me onto a bike because I was never a confident biker.
Yeah, you were a terrible biker.
I was terrible.
I couldn't believe it. How can you be a bad biker?
Like, you just relax. Like, I couldn't.
You just put in the miles.
You got me. I started running when I was in Florida.
Oh my God, yes.
You got me into biking.
Oh yes.
And kicked my butt for the first.
I used to be a serious mountain biker, so that wasn't fair.
And I was always like, "Can we just warm up first?" But that was your warm up was basically my full. Yeah. And then you got me into swimming. You kind of threw me into the ocean with goggles and said, "Go for it."
That's right. That's open ocean too.
And started doing triathlons, and the next thing you know, I was like training for, right before we left for North Carolina, I did my half Ironman.
You did.
And
it was impressive.
That's when I started dragging you out for longer and longer.
Oh my God, it got to be unpleasant. I was sort of like, I would rest up, I'd hydrate, I'd make sure I didn't drink the night before. It was really hard.
I think because towards the end of my training, I was doing like 3 to 4 hour bike rides, and then I'd do a run right after.
Yes, you would.
And so I'd loop around for a while, and then I'd pick up Granddad, and we'd do 2 hours.
Oh my God.
And then I'd loop around some more, and you and I were just done for the rest of the day. We would fall asleep in front of the TV.
Oh, yes.
I was like, I'm sorry, Mark. I'm trying to be a mom too, but like I just couldn't do anything. So yeah, we had a lot of fun doing that. You were obviously very involved with the girls. And
the funniest part of that was, you and I have always been good friends, to the point where Mark has said, sometimes I feel like the son-in-law in this relationship. I've always thought that was a truly funny comment.
Sometimes you introduce me as your daughter.
Do I?
Yeah, you've done it once or twice as like a joke.
Wow.
And then you'll look at me.
Well, I mean, you will be as close to a daughter as I'll ever have.
Yeah, that's very nice. Okay, well, I guess, is there anything else we should cover or before we kind of wrap it up? I mean, there'll be more.
You wanted to talk about the flood.
Yep.
Sounded kind of lame, actually, compared to how dramatic it was during it. You hear us talk about it, we hear you see a calm, dry and thing. Sure didn't feel that way.
You're talking about 40-foot cliffs and stuff. That wasn't, you're not making that up. Like
No. But now listen to us talk. It's inevitable it was going to be easy.
Yeah.
It sure didn't feel that way at the time.
No.
When I was walking down from my little road to where you were in Spring Creek, I got to tell you, I was really uneasy.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was going to find. I didn't know if I'd find all of you drowned.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew it was bad.
Yeah.
And, then when the stories started coming in of the French Broad, they were finding people. It was a 25-foot surge. They were finding people in trees. There were over 200 missing.
Yeah.
And then my heart really sank when they started bringing out the cadaver dogs. That's when I knew it was really getting bad.
Yeah.
And so, at first it was like, we're thrilled to be alive. And then you heard what happened when the French brought you in, your heart sank.
Yeah.
And then you started hearing these horrendous stories, and you just went, oh, that's suffering.
Yeah.
So I don't know that we've conveyed to you. For us, it was dramatic, thrilling, and we made it.
Yeah.
So it's easy to be us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, if you guys have any topic requests that you want us to cover, we're going to try and do another one of these before you leave.
Oh, yeah.
If not, we'll be doing them remotely because we have sort of podcast software that we can do when you're in Florida. If you are interested in any of the topics we've discussed today, if you like hobby farm animals, if you like rescue dogs, rescue cats, old farmhouses, DIY,
Rescue father-in-laws,
any of those things, definitely hit that subscribe button.
Happy to talk about infertility,
medical concerns of any kind. We can talk about
we give bad advice free.
philosophies on raising children.
Ooh, we haven't done that yet. They haven't done Granddad's rules of children.
Granddad's rules of parenting. That's what we're going
yes.
to talk about. Oh, those are good.
Yeah,
You've touched on them a little bit when we were talking about dogs because we were making the
oh yeah,
comparison
very
between
comparable.
dogs and kids.
No
but
different. They're both social pack animals.
let's get into it next podcast.
Okay, well, next podcast, should we do Granddad's rules on parenting?
Absolutely.
Okay, are you going to talk about your swag boots?
Oh, a company called Brunt.
They're really
sent
advertising
these.
all over the place. I
They
mean,
are
I've seen
advertising
them on
everywhere.
football advertisements, and I really like them.
And they're not like they didn't sponsor, they didn't ask to be mentioned or anything like that. This is my first ever pair of work boots, and I'm so excited because I feel in my mind I still see myself as a silly city girl.
Yeah.
And I'm very insecure about the fact that like I have animals and all these things.
Yes.
So the fact that someone thought I was worthy
Right?
to have work
Of
boots.
manly man work boots.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm
best.
wearing them with like running shorts because I don't even know.
But
what
look how new they are.
they're so new.
So you're going to have to sort of do a series of snapshots
Yeah.
to see what happens to them when they're used for real.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think they're a good look.
I think they're a good look. So thank you guys for sending those. That's really awesome. Yeah. Okay. Bye guys.